Not the government.
Question number 8, Steffan Browning.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. This question is to the Minister for Land Information. Do overseas-owned companies need Overseas Investment Office approval to exclusively occupy coastal marine space?
Mr Speaker.
Honourable Maurice Williamson.
Speaker, no. When the overseas investment regime was reviewed by the Labor government in 2003-04, they agreed that the overseas investment regime should not apply to aquaculture. Also, as coastal permits are not interests in land, the transfer of a coastal permit to an overseas-owned company is not an overseas investment in sensitive land.
Steffan Browning.
Why is aquaculture not covered by the Overseas Investment Act when it involves overseas ownership, sensitive land and an exclusive occupation of space?
Honourable Maurice
Speaker,
Williamson.
I believe I answered that. A review was conducted by the Labor government in 2003-04 and that government agreed not to include aquaculture in the regime.
Steffan Browning.
Considering that the majority overseas-owned New Zealand king salmon's plans for 9 new farms would exclude New Zealanders from 200 hectares of iconic protected marine space, produce nutrient waste equivalent to 500,000 people, where more than half the profits and half the salmon can be expected to go offshore, is the Minister going to look at reviewing the Act so that New Zealanders will be able to maintain that space?
Point of order, Mr Speaker.
Point of order, Honourable
Speaker,
Morrison.
I think I've made it very clear from my the answer to the primary question and then supplementary to that, that this is not covered by the Overseas Investment Act and it is not part of my portfolio. And the member is asking questions about coastal marine space and the right to occupy, which has nothing to do with my portfolio responsibility.
Well, that is how the member should answer the question. Yes, well, okay. Point of order, Materia Tura.
The question, while containing quite a bit of information, was actually, will the Minister consider reviewing the law? Now, the Minister has not answered that question, which was the question asked. And
the Minister has responded that is not his portfolio. Stephen Browning, how are we going on? We've got one left. Two more, sorry.
Supplementary.
Order. Stephen Browning.
Given that Overseas Investment Office does deal with sensitive land and foreshore and seabed is included in that, albeit that marine space, in terms of what the Minister has answered to date, and the fact that New Zealand king salmon, 51% owned by the Malaysian Tiong family, has needed OIO consent for its land-based operations, including freshwater salmon hatcheries, what difference does the Minister draw between a freshwater situation and the iconic marine waters of the Marlborough Sounds?
Honourable Maurice Williamson.
Mr Speaker, a Crown Law opinion was sought by the Labor government back in the mid-2003-04 period, which indicated that, indeed, the exclusive right to occupy coastal marine space was not involving sensitive land, and therefore I have to say to the member it is not part of Land Information's responsibility.
Supplementary.
Stephen Browning.
Why or what will be the limits or restrictions on the exclusive occupation of our iconic coastal marine space by foreign-owned companies under this government?
Honourable Maurice Williamson.
Mr Speaker, I'm just terribly reluctant to keep answering questions that are not part of my portfolio. I don't know anything about the right to occupy marine space. It is covered by other ministers and the member should ask those ministers.
Right, we move to question 9. Right Honourable Winston Peters.
This question is to the Prime Minister.